It's time for PL Express. Every single Tuesday, we bring you some of the biggest talking points coming from the weekend that was in the Premier League and look ahead to what's next and some of the big topics that we really do need to touch on. And we must start with Manchester United because, yes, Janusz, it was a win for them, but there were definitely still some questions and concerns after seeing this game. My question to you is, are they still vulnerable and are they worse than they were last season at this point?
I think we're going to stay consistent, right? I mean, now 2-3 weeks ago, we were wondering how much better can this team get, and that's the issue. I think they're about the same as last year. I don't necessarily think they're worse. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time. Let's face it, and we're going to get to other teams at this point. And I'm sure we're going to talk about Arsenal same because people are going to look at it. Oh my goodness, they didn't get the points. But right now, it's all about winning. It doesn't really matter how. Right. So this is what I would say about Manchester United because they found a way in that game. Yes, it didn't look great. I guess I'm waiting for their season to start because they were woeful at home at Old Trafford against Wolves. They were very good against Spurs in the first half, disaster in the second half. That seemed to continue and spill over to this game because they conceded 2 goals early. And I just think they're the same because their transfer market's been very, very poor so far. Mason Mount's injured, but obviously he needs a little bit of time, but he hasn't been special. Onana, okay, I remember De Gea not starting well, and then he became a great goalkeeper for Manchester United over his years. So I think maybe Onana can, and let's give him time. But aside from that, I just don't think that Manchester United, the mighty Manchester United, arguably the biggest club in the world, them and Real Madrid in terms of, fan base and everything else around the world, still are looking for a left back. They continue to have injuries. We continue to look for another defensive midfielder. We think they need another center back. Obviously, because of injuries, they need a left back. And here we are a couple of days before the transfer window being offered. So I'm going to stay with what you and I were talking about it. They overachieved greatly thanks to Ten Hag. He's done a tremendous job. And one thing I remember saying in the preview to the season that I feel good about it now is I said, how much more can Ten Hag squeeze out of essentially the same group of players? And I think we're seeing that so far, not much more. So here we are. I think Manchester United is going to be fine. I think they're a top 4 team. I don't think they're going to get better from that in terms of they won't be a contender for the title. They won't be a contender in the Champions League. They'll be about the same. Unless they change drastically in the next couple of days and in January, it's possible. But as it stands right now, I think same as last season. I don't know if they won a title last year and final.
So he can squeeze a top 4 finish out of them, even with everything you've said. It just feels a little bit chaotic. Do you think that's just early season stuff and it will settle down?
I think it does. I've always said we look at injuries, not just at Manchester United. We look at massive injuries elsewhere, right? Real Madrid's of the world and Arsenal with Timber. As I've said, the biggest issue for me is lack of preseason. And that's why I'm always careful. I mean, there's no preseason. These world tours are absolutely horrible. That's the main reason, not that they play extra 10 minutes now because the referees make them so. I don't think there's a proper preseason where you actually get your fitness in because you go abroad, 3 days later, you play a massive game. If you like it or not, you have to show up because, I don't know, there's 80 or 100,000 people in Michigan or Dallas or Los Angeles or Mumbai or whatever you want to go. So there's that responsibility you feel to play above what you're capable of playing. So we're seeing that with everybody, with Manchester United now, a massive issue at center back, massive issue at left back. I just don't think teams were ready for that. And that to me is a big problem. I'm not making an excuse for Manchester United, but because the quality of the squad is still not where it needs to be, not for a club like Manchester United, that's why we're seeing chaos right now because it's patchwork and Ten Hag knows it.
You mentioned Arsenal then. Are they still a work in progress? And are they still City's closest challengers?
Every team is a work in progress, no matter where you think you are. So I think they're absolutely fine. I didn't see anything wrong other than putting away their opponent. I mean, they should have won that 4 or 5-0 easily. We know that games like that do come through. I don't worry about Arsenal at the moment. Yes, they are I had him second, just like last season. I don't see anything that would change my mind. The one thing that changed my mind, something that you've asked me continuously, and I was a non-believer, was Eddie Nketiah. This is a player that needs to start now, even when Gabriel Jesus plays. And for those of you that listen to me all the time, that's a complete 180. I have to grow into him, but he comes in, he does his job. When he plays for the start, he's fine as well. I don't see any problems with that last result, other than, of course, you're playing at home and you should be getting 3 points. They certainly deserved it, and ultimately didn't see it through. But way too early for me to even worry about Arsenal.
And are they the biggest challenges then to City?
Yeah. At this point, you have to say. I mean, you look at Manchester United. We've talked about it, and Liverpool. It's certainly not there to do it. We don't think Chelsea are. We've seen that Newcastle are dropping points left and right at the moment. And I think that, Arsenal dominated every game they've played so far.
All right, let's talk about Liverpool then. There's a few places to go here. Let's first of all start. It's something we've touched on in these shows, ESPNFC Live. If Mo Salah were to go, would Liverpool be in big trouble?
Perception would be that. I don't think if there were going to be a much bigger. I think it's that perception, because you always expect something special from him, and he can deliver you that. But I think Liverpool would still be, if Salah is here or not, Liverpool is still fighting for top 4, and I believe that they could get there with or without him. Obviously, if he went right now, there wouldn't be a lot of time to spend that money, so I think they'd have to grind a little bit until January. We know that Liverpool are pretty decent in terms of doing a good job bringing players in January, right? There are teams that can do it, but Liverpool can. Part of me thinks, regardless, forget how many days are left, forget if Liverpool are going to let him go or not. My gut feeling is that if 130 million, 150 million came through, I would sell him. There's a massive rebuild at Liverpool. Some of it was expected, but think about it. I mean, Sadio Mane is gone, Bobby Firmino is gone, Jordan Henderson is gone, and as I've mentioned, Fabinho is gone, and he's kind of the last Mohican, if you will, in a way. That doesn't mean that he has to go, but I think would simplify, the decisions and flexibility of Jurgen Klopp, because he has no flexibility with Mo Salah. Mo Salah has to start. Mo Salah has to play the entire game, otherwise he's unhappy. And maybe, after what we saw from Darwin Núñez, and I didn't see it coming, but maybe that's what he needs. He needs that love he talks about. He needs to play all the time. But, you have Jota, you have Gakpo. You're trying to find Gakpo in the midfield maybe because you want to fit in Luis. I don't – look, all I remember, Liverpool at their best, the lineup picked itself. The front three, you never, ever had a question. There was one midfield spot that maybe you and I would say, who's going to start today? And that front three is not that easy to pick. And I'm going to stop short of saying that Mo Salah gets in the way of it a little bit, because his body language rubs me the wrong way a little bit. Having said all that, I love Mo Salah.
No, I know you do, but you just don't think it would be as worrying as some think it might be.
No, we always think that way. These magical players, you always say, what we're going to do, but teams and others find a way. Others take advantage of the opportunity. Because these players know there is no opportunity. On that right-hand side, there's absolutely zero opportunity for anybody. You're picking 2 players for 3 spots. And normally that's okay. That's, great players have that. But I just think at Liverpool, having what they have going forward, I think knowing that there are options, either centrally on the right where you can move it, I think would elevate some of these players at Liverpool. And of course, with 150 million, you could do a little bit of damage.
Couple more on Liverpool then. Seeing as though you mentioned Darwin Núñez, is this him arriving? Is this it? Should he be starting?
No, I mean, we have to see. We have to see more of that, right? I mean, you'd like to say it's 2 great goals, and obviously a club has some worries about him defensively, and that's important, obviously, when you press and counter press. But I think this is a great start. I mean, it'd be silly not to take advantage of this momentum. It's going to be interesting who starts now, right? I mean, again, I mean, I guess you can play him centrally because, Gakpo didn't have a great game, so he could start there.
It's an I guess. What are your concerns with Trent Alexander-Arnold? Not just going forward here, going forward this season. There was a lot of talk about him in the summer. Maybe there would be a new role for him. There felt like there was some excitement. Do you feel that excitement's gone away a little bit now?
No, there's a couple of things. Look, I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a defensive liability. Make zero mistakes about it. I don't care what fans say, especially Liverpool fans. I think we know that. Playing the hybrid role hides that a little bit. I want him to play in the midfield always. I don't want him as a right back. Forget about that. When he does make mistakes there's usually consequences to pay. We saw it last season. We saw it against one young Anthony Gordon. He got frustrated. I think he was lucky to a degree to be on the pitch because that second challenge after he got booked early, that could have been a yellow card. I'm not saying that absolutely had to be, but if it was shown, I don't think you'd see complaints there. He was frustrated. He was beaten for the goal where he made a mistake. And this is against Young and Gordon. I mean, this is Anthony Gordon that just got there. He's played better. I think the summer was wonderful for him, winning the European Championship, under 21 championship with England. But Trent, for me, is not a defender. His instinct is to go forward. He's a great distributor of the ball. We know that Liverpool need a player in the midfield. I would just absolutely, if I'm Liverpool, I would absolutely make him a midfielder, and I would look for a proper, experienced right back that knows how to defend. First and foremost, that's a first job. And I would play Trent in the midfield. I'm done with this hybrid. And, he's not that young. He's experienced enough, and he's gotten Liverpool, so many points, so many trophies. He's a great player, but he's a defensive liability, and this is going to continue to show itself.
Lastly, Manchester City, defending champions, and many think that they're just going to run away with it this season. In terms of points, great start for them so far. Any concerns whatsoever for you from what you've seen so far?
No, I guess only, it was different. They found a way ultimately. It wasn't as easy as it should have been. I mean, Pep Guardiola was away. It kind of felt that way, didn't it? The cat's away, the mice will play. It kind of had that feeling in terms of intensity a little bit. Ultimately, of course, they found a way. But no, and, typical Pep, right? After, Phil Foden was the man of the match against Newcastle, doesn't start him, comes in last 4 minutes of the game, has an assist on the winning goal, and kind of in 5 or 10 minutes made a difference a little bit. But isn't it funny? And I understand Bernardo Silva was ill in that game, but still, after a game like this, when you know that this is a big season for Phil Foden, when he finally plays an excellent game against a very good Newcastle team, he starts on the bench. So there's, we always ask, how is Pep going to motivate players? I don't know the reasonings behind it, but still crazy. I never thought that Phil Foden wasn't going to be in the starting 11 in that match. So just to build the confidence and momentum. So no worries there. You look at Erling Haaland, proven once again that he's a great striker. He's not a great player, by the way. He's one of the greatest strikers in the world, but he's certainly not one of the greatest players. Again, few touches, he scores, 50% passing accuracy. Not good enough. Sometimes, by the way, I look at him and I wonder if some of his teammates bypass him on purpose. Because
but what constitutes a great player? Is it not supposed? You're just saying it has to be your all-round game, or is it that you're just excellent in your position? Then you're a great player, aren't you?
Well, that's what I said. He's going to be perhaps one of the greatest strikers, but he's not going to be one of the greatest players. I don't think there's going to be a time in 10, 20 years when I'm going to be talking about Erling Haaland in the same breath that I've talked about Pele, Maradona, Messi, and Ronaldo. I'm sorry, I just don't see it, even as young as he is. So, again, not to create any controversy, it kind of came out, right? Great play, but again, when he scored, he had 20 touches, of which he, 50% of that found one of his teammates. Lost the ball in those 20 some touches. He lost the ball 9 times. I'm sorry, but that's not good enough on a team like Manchester City, where even when you make a bad pass, their chances are that somebody's going to be there because they're that good. So he does what he does. I appreciate it. That's his job. But again, his all-around game still lacking.
Yeah, it sounds like you say they should get rid of him. A team like Manchester City is not good enough.
Now you're being melodramatic. No,
you said this is not good enough. So what does he have to? What's going to happen then? He has to get better.
No, he just got to continue scoring goals. I mean, you continue asking me questions. I just threw it out there. He's a great player, great goal scorer. Not a great player because it's, again, statistically, he doesn't do as much as Harry Kane or Lewandowski when they're at their best. I think he can. Look, I mean, his strength would have been on a team that's counterattacking, right? You'd see a lot more quality like we did at times. Not that Borussia Dortmund were that team, but there were games I remember where Dortmund was able to do that, and we saw maybe a little bit different Haaland. So I don't want to say paint myself in the corner, but you continue to ask. I just threw it out there that he's a great goal scorer and not a great player. So there's a difference in that. I hope people understand that.
Well, I'm sure they'll let you know if
I would never get rid of him. He's going to score, I told you, 30-some goals.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.